I'm going to start off. Yesterday I was put in a position where I needed to back up and really decide what it was that I wanted to talk about today. And obviously it's a pretty big stage, and that probably should have happened a couple months ago. But I wait till the last minute on pretty much everything. Most of the people I'm usually talking to, they're in my industry. They know the struggles. They understand my message usually before I say it. My message today, I decided that I really wanted people to understand that trees are more about the community that they're in than the ground that they're planted in. And usually, it comes a little bit easier. I'm going to start off by telling you that I'm standing here, you look at my credentials, and I'm standing here feeling like a little bit of an imposter. Now, I'm not telling you that to downplay my message or to make you think that I'm not confident in the skills that I have. I started in this industry because I loved the physicality. I liked the demands that it put on my body. I loved running a chainsaw. I loved climbing trees, everything about it. Being able to step back at the end of the day and look down a street that I just trimmed, and that feeling of accomplishment. That's what got me into this. Something else that you may find interesting about me, being that I was a past city forester, I'm a municipal arborist, I have all these credentials that make me sound like kind of a tree hugger, I suppose. My favorite thing to do in the world is to cut trees down. Completely backwards, I get it. Now, I get so excited when there's an opportunity to drop a tree without cutting any branches off. I'll walk up to a 150-year-old tree, I will find the lean, I will see which branches are the heaviest, and I get excited to carve a giant notch out of that tree. I look forward to the pop that comes just before it starts to fall, and the sound of those wood fibers just attempting to hold what's left of the trunk as it comes crashing to the ground, squeaking like an old wooden door. So clearly, the perspective I'm going to share with you today is not that of a tree hugger, but somebody who's been here a little while and has seen that our community, our communities, are progressing in a direction that doesn't value trees. A little bit of another story about myself. I grew up a trailer park kid. We didn't have trees to climb. I think the most exciting thing we ever had happen in our yard was that the weeds got as tall as the fence once. My grandparents, on the other hand, we spent a lot of time at their house. They had an awesome yard. I remember a patio this tall, and their yard was terraced. My brother and I would run and jump off of that patio into this small landing of grass. And then there was a flower bed with flagstone on an angle that separated the lawns, and then it dropped down to another lawn. We would run and we would jump, and we would click our heels off of it. We would twist in the air. We would jump and try and reach the limbs of this tree that grew in that flower bed. Hours and hours of enjoyment. The other thing that we loved to do in that yard was we would stand on this rock in the flower beds, and it was sacred ground if you were anywhere near Grandma's flowers. She watched you like a hawk, but we would stand on this rock, and there was a limb that was just out of reach, and we could jump from this rock, and we could hold on to this limb, and we would swing as high as we could, and we'd get a bunch of momentum, and then we'd drop down and land in the grass below. It seems like everything we did revolved around this stupid tree. It'd been quite a few years ago, or quite a few years had passed since I'd been in that backyard. Most of the times that I was headed home, I was going to see my grandpa. His health was failing. We would go to the hospital, but we never made it back to that house. And the first time I went back to that house, I walked into the backyard, and for whatever reason, I was drawn to this tree, and I never really understood the impact that tree had on my childhood until I stood on that rock and I looked at that limb, and even if I could wrap my hands around that limb to give it a real good swing just for old time's sake, Grandma was standing in the window watching, and if I'd done it, my legs would have went through every one of those flowers. I knew I'd never get in the house. I tell you this story because the place that I live now, it's in a new subdivision. When we first moved there, my dad and I we went to do something, liquor store, I don't know what it was. But we're driving down the road, and we're driving through the older part of town, those places where grandpa's planted those trees for the kids to swing. And we start transitioning into this newer subdivision, the subdivision that I lived in. And he made this comment. My dad's way smarter than me, and I'll admit that in front of him. He's sitting here someplace. He always says these things that make me think, and I'm slow. It takes me a little while to really understand what it was. But he said, I love this city. It's like the vibe is great. I love the small town feel, but it feels like it's growing just to grow. I was like, man, I just got a new house. You're a real downer right now, you know? And for days I thought about this, growing just to grow. I was like, I don't really know what you're talking about. But as I drove that same road every day, transitioning out of those older neighborhoods, I started to see what he was talking about. All these new subdivisions that are coming in, you transition out of that old part of town, the roads are really wide, they're flanked on either side with white vinyl fence. That seems to be the thing. White vinyl fence, rock strip separating the fence from the sidewalk, and it just looks sterile. All the subdivisions are in a row. They look the same, these little communities unto themselves that you don't even get to see until you drive past the sign that says, oh, you're in this subdivision, not that one, that looks exactly the same. So it's kind of funny, and this is a little bit off topic, but really still on topic, I think. In my new position, I get to sit in these meetings where developers come and they bring these concepts. And this developer comes in and he says, I got this amazing subdivision, and it was a game changer for where we live. I was like, man, I'm really feeling inspired right now. And he said, he goes off on this tangent, and he says, something I've done in this other community it's a game changer for us, is I've talked the fire department into changing the code so that I can change the setback between houses from 10 feet to 5 feet. It's like, what? You're 5 feet from being a townhouse. That doesn't sound like a game changer. You're talking to a parks guy here. And so I'm trying to conceptualize what 5 feet looks like. What does 5 feet feel like? And then I remembered what 5 feet feels like. One time I was sitting at the dinner table across from my dad, and he sneezed with a mouthful of corn. That's what 5 feet feels like to me. That's not a yard. So my point of this is where we live has evolved. Our communities have evolved, and they don't value trees. Drive any new subdivision and look at the layout. The lots are small. They're measured in feet now instead of acres or even fractions of an acre. And they leave very little room for anything other than smaller stature trees that never really do a whole lot. And the other thing I've learned about people is they're really impatient. I had a yard, it was 15 feet from house to fence. And my neighbor planted a row of cottonwoods on that fence line. That changed my life. That changed everything about my backyard. And when people ask me for advice on trees, hey, what kind of tree should I plant? I really want fall color, and I don't want fruit, and I don't want leaves, and I don't. Regardless of what I tell them, I was like, it'll grow 4 feet a year. Nope, not going to work for me. I need shade right now. So they plant that cottonwood in these yards, and those trees get cut down long before they actually add any value to the landscape or the neighborhood. And to me, it's very self-serving. There's a term, it's called social capital. And the social capital came from this woman in Washington State that studies communities and trees, and it's something that's really hard to put value on. It's a feeling that mature landscapes give somebody when you are exposed to it. And you can't see it in a picture. It's really something more that you feel when you're immersed in these mature landscapes where there's big giant trees. And that we've started to evolve away from that. The other thing that social capital is not just about planting trees and investing in that time. Social capital is about protecting trees, big trees, those trees that give you that feeling, like the grandpa tree. I'm going to tell you one more story. I see my time just tick, 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 tick. One more story, and this is kind of a fun one. I've been working for the city for quite a while. Well, let me back up a little bit further. 1962. City of Grand Junction, first city in the country to make their downtown more appealing to shoppers, trying to attract people to spend money, hang out downtown. 4 lanes of traffic go right down the center of Main Street, right out here. They come up with this concept to shrink the lanes down to 2, serpentine the traffic through the downtown, and they accomplish this by adding planters, planting trees, and giving places for people to sit, to just hang out, Great idea to boost the economy. Now fast forward 10 years ago. City of Grand Junction said, this is an amazing concept. We're going to scrape it all off. It makes sense. Let me give you a second. We're going to scrape this all off, but what we're going to do is we're going to do everything in our power we're going to protect these trees. We're going to tighten the traffic even more to slow traffic down, and we're going to continue with this award-winning model. We're going to do some amazing things. I'm in the forestry department at this point, and my boss, his name is Tom. I'd be surprised if he wasn't here. Tom comes up to me. They're doing this renovation. They've been working on it a little bit. It's behind schedule. He says, man, I need you. You need to go with me downtown. We got to stop all these construction guys because they're trashing out the trees. And we need to talk to them about what we need to do to protect these trees. I was like, all right, okay, I can do that. So we go down there. He didn't tell me this part. We get down there, and he says, this engineer is going to read, imagine a contractor, excavators, timelines, digging, just plugging away. These guys are rough and tumble. These are the guys I've never figured this out. They can have a cigarette in their mouth, just on the edge of their lips, and they can talk, and that thing bounces up and down, never falls out of their mouth. Am I right? Have you seen this? It's an incredible skill. He's stopping these guys from doing what they love, which is digging things up and tearing stuff up. And we get them in a group, 30 or 40 of these guys. We get them in a group, and the engineer stands there and reads a poem about trees. True story. On top of that, my boss says, okay, guys, come here. I want you to stand around. This is what I expect you to do when you get around some roots, okay? Get out of your excavator. We've lost them at that point. Get out of your excavator, and I expect you to take the shovel and dig delicately around these roots. And if you damage any of them, get down here with me. Come here. We're going to wrap the roots in wet burlap. And then you need to hurry up. As soon as you can, you need to get dirt back on those roots so that you don't damage them. Cigarettes on the ground. These guys hated our guts. The reason I tell you this story is social capital. When you walk out of here tonight, you're going to see the product of my boss, Tom, and that crazy-ass engineer that read these guys a poem about trees. And I want you to look at all those trees down there that are 60 years old and try and put a value on how that feels without them. If we had to scrape it all off and plant little trees again, would you hang out downtown? One of the goals that I have as a city forester and as an arborist is that my job is to open people's minds to understanding the value that planting a tree does, not for the individual, not for just a community, but the people that come after us. If those guys didn't have the foresight to plant those trees downtown, we would not have what we enjoy right now. So I ask you to think about that, and I ask you to start seeing the trees for the forest. I want to each tree, everything that we plant, everything that we do is part of a bigger picture. Thank you.